I can. We just talked over like live, and that's, that is the thing. Welcome everyone. My name is Chris Lind. With me as always is Heather Balcerek. This is the Hire Me podcast live show that we do every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Western, and we are here to elevate today's top talents. If this is your first time joining us, we do these live shows to help job seekers get some tips and tricks from some experts in the industry. And if you are someone who is job hunting, or someone who is job hunting, you can always sign up for a free video resume that Heather and myself create for you to share with hiring managers, recruiters, hiring teams, whoever you may want to share that with, so you can stand out in a new way. Heather, what is going on? Happy Friday.
Oh, happy Friday. I am so happy that it's Friday. It has been a crazy week. So much stuff happening at work, but this is I look forward to this every Friday, to just be able to chat with you and chat with people that watch and talk about the job market, how, and bring people on like today's guest, that will help people do more and learn more and all the words.
All the things.
All the things.
Well, today's guest is Katie Crafts. Let's bring her up. And she is here to talk to us about mid-career pivots. Katie, welcome.
Hi, you two. Thanks for having me. It's fun to be here. Happy Friday.
Yes, happy Frivolous Friday.
Yes.
Well, Katie, why don't you tell everyone who is here watching either live or watching after we've gone live, who you are and what you do.
Cool. Yeah, I am Katie. I'm a recruiter turned job search consultant. And my story has been a very non-linear one. I'll give it to you quickly in a nutshell. I started my career in nonprofit management in a small rural town in Oregon, where there's not that much economic opportunity. So you kind of have to create your own roles. And I quickly learned that nonprofits at that stage wouldn't pay me enough to live here. So I rolled into recruitment, which I kind of just stumbled into, as I think a lot of recruiters do. And it was great. It was right in the heyday of advertising technology, when I could have easy access through simple cold calls to a CEO or SVP at a new startup. And I learned a ton and did that for several years. And then I did one of those classic late 20s maneuvers where I throw my desk out the window and go work in Antarctica, as we do. And I just had this vision of myself being a little more explored and knowing a little bit more about the planet than what my job at the time would open up for me. And so I decided to switch my life priorities from earning into learning, and just wanted to throw myself into the planet. And I worked in Antarctica for a few years, and then led trips in East Greenland and then in the polar bear region of the Canadian Arctic. And that was 5 years in an amazing chapter. And then I came back, and my priorities once again shifted, this time more towards stability and earning potential. So I went back into recruitment, ended up going in house with one of my larger clients, a global tech company, helped them build out their North America recruiting presence, and then launched this company. This company, now what I'm doing is I've kind of rolled my professional knowledge of recruitment and what happens from the other side of the hiring desk, and my personal experience throwing my desk upside down and doing a major career pivot, and feeling how hard that was, how isolating that was, how misunderstood I felt in that, and rolling that into my package offerings now, where I help other people do the same. And by do the same, I don't mean go find work in Antarctica. I just mean do a little pivot. And sometimes that's changing a sector, changing industries, changing job titles, just kind of get reinvigorated in their careers so that their careers fuel their lifestyle.
That is awesome. Well, as you can see, we've got several people here with us watching live. We've got Matt, we've got Amy. Welcome.
Hey, Matt.
If you have
Hey, Amy.
if you've got any questions or comments, make sure you're putting them in the chat, and we will get them answered, or we'll feature them here on the screen. Well, Katie, I mean, when you talk about the mid-career pivot, I think it's something that is a lot of individuals get really scared on, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
just aren't sure what to do, especially if they have 10, 15, maybe 20 or more years under their belts. So
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things that, you know, they should do if they are in that moment where they're like, hey, I'm stuck, I don't know what to
Mm-hmm.
do here, what do I do?
Yeah. First, I just want to validate that feeling stuck is typically the first stage of a major pivot. And if you're feeling stuck, congratulations, you're probably at the trailhead of your next path and don't know where to go from here. So I think that's a good feeling to acknowledge in yourself and to lean into. And that's really where I see a lot of my clients get stuck first is, okay, I feel like I've been sitting at this desk for a decade or 2 decades, and these fluorescent lights are just killing me, but I don't know what else I could do or what I'm qualified for. And I have this romantic vision of what life in Antarctica would be like, or, I just have these concepts, but I don't have the details or I don't have that real lived knowledge of what this work looks like, what it entails to get there, if it's possible for me in my mid career to a pivot toward that? And if so, if I need courses or whatnot. So, the way I recommend people get started when they're feeling stuck is to basically figure out their priorities first. And I see people shuffling through earning and learning and impacting throughout different points of their careers. Those tend to be the main three buckets. Hopefully, you're getting one of those. Maybe you're getting two of those. If you're getting three, that's awesome. And if you're getting none, then it's time to get yourself to the trailhead and try something new. But figure out which one of those is your decision making North Star. So if you are about to make a family and you're the breadwinner for the family, it seems pretty reasonable that earning and work life balance and having good benefits would be your decision making factor. And then there's going to be other support pillars behind that, but get to know what that main criteria is. And then I like to most people have kind of at least two paths. They have their linear path, which is the low hanging fruit and the thing they're most qualified for. And probably there's a better version of what they're doing now within that path. So that's one path to explore. But then there's this whole arena of what else is out there? What other jobs could fuel my lifestyle? What other jobs could I get paid what I want for? Where else can I use my skills to impact a cause that I'm passionate about? How can I get summers off so I can spend time with my kids? There's just a lot of curiosity. So within that curiosity, that's where I really see people getting momentum is instead of just applying to jobs, which is a good tactic for a linear path, when they go into this exploration mode, it's a lot more strategic networking. So it's identifying what your intention is. Are you earning, learning, or impacting? How to represent that when you're talking with people, what your pitch is, how do you communicate what value you'll bring in this new field, despite that you have other career experience in the past, and then start having conversations. And those conversations are usually a lot more exciting than submitting a resume to the black hole of online applications and not hearing anything back. That can feel pretty demoralizing. But those conversations tend to create energy. Sometimes it's a person who you just really vibe with and want to work with them. And then after that initial conversation, you can go back and say, hey, you mentioned that your team is needing a leader with entrepreneurial experience. And I've done a lot of that. And I think I can leverage my experience for your team. Do you want to talk about that? And you can kind of shift the conversation from information gathering into let's align on this. What does this look like if we were to move forward? Maybe it's people, maybe it's job titles that people get clarity on. Maybe it's target companies. Patagonia is a classic target company where people just maybe have been eyeing it for a long time in their life and want to figure out how to wiggle their way in.
Yeah, I mean, those are some really great tips, especially when you talk about, I think this theme that Heather and I continually come back to is how do you tell like your story, especially when it
Hmm.
is not 100% relevant? And even if it is relevant, how do you just start sharing your knowledge and your expertise? So are there anything specifically around sharing that story, sharing your expertise? Like what do you recommend? Is it posting on LinkedIn all the time, starting a YouTube page, starting a TikTok account? Like what is it that like you think people need to do to start sharing their either like showing their expertise or sharing their thought leadership?
Yeah, great question. I love that term, thought leadership. Hey, Rachel. Um, I think it's really important for people to know what their personal brand is. And I'm an elder millennial, and whenever I hear myself say the word personal brand, I get a new gray hair just out of spite. But I think it's real. People, especially if you're making a big career pivot, you're going to be leveraging those power skills from your background in indirect ways. So you have to identify what uniquely about you have you excelled at? What are your super strengths? I'm a recruiter, and so is my friend Lisa, and we have very different super strengths. And each of us should be hired in sometimes different scenarios. Each of us will excel in different ways. Each of us will need different methods of support. So, how do I communicate what kind of recruiter I am? For me, I'm a recruiter who helps with first in market positions, leadership roles, and I set up processes. And the impact on the business is that I can help them establish their North America business. And so by saying those extra details, a recruiter or an employer on the other side of my application will have a lot more clarity about where I can add value. Oh, we've been trying to hire our first SVP positions in North America for years and haven't been able to crack that code. We didn't really analyze that or advertise that on the job description, which often happens, but now they know that that's where I can really excel. So I would get really clear on your personal brand and link it back to the impact that you've provided and the impact that you will provide. What is unique about working with you? What are your super skills? And then I would highlight this in a few different places. Definitely LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my hammer in my toolkit. I'm on it all the time and I recommend it and get my clients sorted out on it. It's a great tool to connect with anybody in the professional space. So it's a really awesome space to be in. And then I recommend getting your headline clear on your LinkedIn, getting your headline clear on your resume. And that right under your name, if you add a quick LinkedIn style headline, that can be the lens that your reader reads the rest of your resume through. So it's kind of like saying, hey, I know you'll see a few different angles on this resume, but I want you to come at it with this lens of first in market positions while establishing processes. Got it? Okay, now carry on. So it's just a quick, simple headline, a lens to give your reader to help connect the dots for them. And then on the resume, I like to showcase themes and backgrounds by having, I know this is getting a little extra tactical here, but I like having bold subheaders underneath each career experience or the most relevant career experiences. And those are kind of like the big filing cabinets of the impact that you've had at the past employers that you want to carry with you into your future job. So for example, for me, one of those filing cabinets has been leadership. I've helped establish recruitment as a strategic business branch instead of a tactical business branch. So leadership would be in bold, and then I'd have a bullet point of evidence supporting that statement. And then I'd have recruitment, which if I'm applying for a recruiting role, that might sound kind of obvious, but you have to connect those dots for the reader. So I'd have recruitment, and then I'd say hired 67 first in market positions in first year, including blah, 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 and have that evidence to support that filing cabinet. So you're starting with this personal brand, narrowing it down into a headline, and then having these subheaders that give evidence of, and this is how I've done that. Does that make sense?
100%. I just put this comment up here from Amy. She said, "Love giving readers the lens when you're looking at your profile." And I like when you said that, I was like, "Oh, that's genius!" Like, like that was such a like I was gonna call that out. So Amy, thanks for being in my brain. I do want to kind of go back just a bit because Amy did ask a question as well. She said you mentioned your elevator pitch, right? When it comes to your personal brand and all of that. So, what's your personal formula for that?
In a nutshell, it's basically what you do, your unique value statement, and then the impact it has on the business. So mine off the top of my head could be something like, I'm a recruiter with 10 plus years experience. and now this is the part that you really have to dial in. What's your unique value add? For me, it's hires leadership positions, first in market while establishing processes. So I would create some coherent sentence around those few bullet points. And then the value for the business. Why does your job exist and why should they hire someone like you? They probably know that, but it can only help if you connect the dots for them. So for me, the value of being a thoughtful, empathetic recruiter is that they get talent that's relevant to their business. They can scale their business with top talent in a new market. They can hire best in class for first positions, something that links it back to this is why you and your business should care about this position. Again, they probably know because they're posting the job, but if we can relate our work back to the business's goals, that's always really helpful.
I agree, and you're saying so many things there that I'm just like, ooh, this and this and this. So you talk about, obviously we're talking about career transitions and moving from, one thing to another, these nonlinear paths, and connecting the dots for recruiters. And I think a lot about when people are changing their industry
Mm-hmm.
and how people, maybe they've been a manager and they're wanting to switch to project management, but they're like, I don't have a PMP. I don't have anything official. It's never been my title. But it's in that, like, you have to connect the dots. You've done the work, right? But you have to like connect the dots and let the person see it. So can you talk a little bit about like how to, I don't know, like as they're prepping their resume or their elevator pitch, like trying to navigate that, this is what it was called here, this is what it's called here, and connecting the dots for people. Did that question even make sense? Did here?
Yes, totally.
Okay, good.
It came out here. It started here, it came out here, and the dots were connected. Good job.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. How do you know which transferable skills to highlight and how do you mark them as known transferable skills? I like to work my way back from your target job descriptions. So when you're in this first kind of feeling stuck and overwhelmed and starting to step onto the path of exploration, one of the things you can do is sign up for job notices on different job boards. LinkedIn is a great one, but also get into those nitty-gritty niche job boards. That's where you might see some new positions, more of a niche community around the focus that you're going toward. And just get familiar with what the job descriptions are. Start looking at what the responsibilities are. If they're writing objectives in there, take that into note and start getting a sense of what people are looking for. And then you can highlight those skills in your background that match to that. Chances are you also have extra skills. And by the way, if you don't have a PMP, you can just go into your LinkedIn spam folder and you'll have 20 messages from people trying to sell you a PMP course. So don't let that one hold you back. But go into your, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought with that one because I have so many spam PMP messages. Okay, but
So
go back.
many.
Yeah, so many.
So many.
So work your way back from your target jobs and then showcase only what's relevant. You probably have a lot of other skill sets. And also, you want to make sure to really elevate the skills that are most needed in your target role. So, ways you can do that, for example, leadership is one of mine in recruitment, but it was also one of mine when I was guiding trips in Antarctica and Greenland. I was the team lead, team guide, and those are transferable skills. And I can highlight that by saying, led led groups of 10 on rural or remote wilderness trips in East Greenland. Then I'm giving some evidence of, this is strong leadership because we're in a remote area. This is the number of people or the ratio that I've worked with in that context. If I was looking for a first time management position, that would be really great experience to highlight. It is transferable, and I just want to help connect the dots for that reader. So again, I would use that bold subheader of leadership, and then you can say some career highlights at the top of your resume to show, leadership is really strong for me. I've practiced it in these different parts of the world and these different corporate positions as well. Team lead for 6 people, built the team from 0 to 6 in North America, something like that, where you're connecting the dots on behalf of people. So start with your target, work your way back to identify what skills are that are needed, and then selectively give evidence from your background to showcase evidence for those skills. And a great resource for this, controversial though it is ChatGPT. I love plugging in a job description to ChatGPT and asking it, what are the top 5 skills to showcase for this position? You can level that up by then putting your resume in and saying, which are the skills from my resume to showcase for this specific job. ChatGPT can be a really awesome thought partner and brainstorm tool.
I I mean, I get teased for using Chat GPT, but I think it makes things so much easier. And again, especially if you are looking for that pivot, right? Some of the skills that you've acquired in your experience and in your career may not be obvious to us,
Mhm.
right? As we're looking at a different role, a different industry, or a completely different career path. Um, as we're, one more question here is, what are the things that, as people are going into this, that they just need to be aware of? Like, what are some traps that they need to avoid
Mm.
um, when they are looking at making that shift?
That's a great question. I feel like there's philosophical traps and tactical traps. Philosophical, I think, are what I see the most limiting mindsets around is just a lot of, I mean, I'm struggling with imposter syndrome myself, and I see a lot of people doing that. And I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome when we're making that career change of, yes, I've nurtured the skill of leadership, but am I really capable of stepping into a team management position at my dream company? Ah, that feels so scary. And also, yes, you are. And you have to believe in yourself and you have to know that these things are within reach. So I just read a great quote from James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. And it said something along the lines of start optimistic, then get pessimistic, and then end optimistic. And what he's saying is when you start, you have to know it's attainable or else you won't get started. And then once you get started, you have to be realistic. So bring a layer of reality on top of what you're doing, apply to jobs that you're qualified for, reach out to people who are both aspirational, but also warm leads and people who know you and will take the time to chat. And then end optimistically because you're making progress on that. So you have to, once again, go back into believing in yourself. So I think limiting mindsets are the biggest thing that hold people back here. Tactically, the biggest pitfall that I see people getting stuck at is going into this same old habit of applying to jobs. And you have to remember that on the other side of that application black hole is a recruiter who's probably getting 100 to 6,000 applications, depending on which job you're looking at on LinkedIn. And they are actually looking at each of those resumes. There's a lot of talk about how ATS rolls out different resumes and whatnot, but what an ATS does is it really stores the information and keeps track of candidates and candidate movement through the company and keeps track of resumes. So once you've applied to a job, you're in their database so that if they're looking for someone with your skill set, they'll do a little search in their database and pull you up. So it's always good to be inside of their ATS. ATSs aren't really a scary thing. They're just there to help recruiters and reporting and businesses with their hiring strategies. But if you're just applying to jobs and you're doing this nonlinear pivot, your resume is going to be one of 200, and there's going to be people in there who are yeses and people who are nos, and then a lot of maybes. And if you're a maybe, you're going to be overlooked in favor of the yeses. Recruiters are just humans, and we just want to find the right person and then move on to the next job to find the right person. That's what we do all day, every day. And so, the best strategy when you're making a pivot is not to apply to jobs, but really to network and be strategic about your networking, be focused about your networking, have your intention, have your pitch, figure out who your warm leads are, create really awesome emails so that you can reach out to cold leads. There's some great resources on LinkedIn and on the internet and on my website for how to create cool templates so that people actually open your email and read it. And really just start having conversations. Hiring has become very complicated, and it is, and that's good. And there's now data and reporting, and it should be complicated because strategy is complicated and hiring is definitely strategy. And also, at its core, hiring is very simple. It's just finding a person who's finding a person who can do the job. And I think we as job seekers have forgotten that it's a human on the other side of that. humans on the other side of that have forgotten that job seekers are also human and don't deserve to get ghosted and things like that. But if you can remember that you're just a human who's trying to connect with other humans who could use your skills, and then kind of pitch your work around all of that, that is how you can have compelling, strong conversations that'll lead you toward the path that you want to get on.
So much good stuff here, Katie. And I know like we're so close to the time, to our time. So Courtney did ask a question. And we've talked about this in a couple different episodes, but do you have any just quick kind of advice for Courtney? How do you make your LinkedIn messages regarding to connect stand out?
Absolutely. That's a good question. I'll give credit to Samantha McKenna, who is my guru for how to be seen in a virtual world. If you're not following Samantha McKenna, I think I might be her biggest fangirl, and she doesn't know who I am, but I've learned so much from her. Follow her. She gives really good strategies, but I'll sum up the ones that apply to this for job seekers. First, I would follow that person on LinkedIn for a week or two. If they're posting and if you can see that they have activity, then you can see that what they're posting, what they're interested in. You can get to know them a little better. You can even comment, and then suddenly your name is on their profile, and they've probably seen your name, and you'll be a little familiar. And all you're trying to do when you build these new connections is create familiarity and deeper familiarity at every step of the way. So if your name is already a little bit seen, then you can message later, a week or two later, and say, "Hey, Chris, my name might look familiar. I've been commenting on your post. I really love your angle on risk management. Would love to connect here." And then you're connected. And then once you're connected, you can continue that conversation in messaging. So then you can say, "Chris, I can see that you are an expert on risk management." I don't know if how risk management falls in terms of your transferable skills, but for example, I really loved the article that you wrote, and it got me thinking about this wormhole. And I just am really curious about that as a career field, and I'm starting to explore it. Would you have 15 minutes to tell me a little bit more about how you got into that and what's moving and shaking for you in that space? And by that point, by the time you make that ask, you're already familiar to them. You've shown them that you're taking the time to get to know them and do your research. And it's a very organic human interaction. I think people feel the ick when it comes to outreach when they're actually copy pasting from ChatGPT and saying, "I am a PMP manager and I am looking to sell you my product. Do you want to buy? Here's my Calendly." And there's a lot of really bad ways to do that. But if you do it really organically, remind yourself that they're a human and you're a human. What would you want to hear? That's where I see people getting the most success.
Katie, I love this advice. It's fantastic. And as somebody who does get people that reach out to me a lot, like that kind of organic way is so much better than the cold. Like, can I grab 15 minutes off and that's all you tell me? Like, no, like give me a little bit, like let me warm up to me a little bit. Let me know who you are. You're not just like a weird scammer.
Yeah, totally.
And so we have Matt's comment here. So what Katie just described worked for him. Get curious about people. His network is stronger than ever. I love that. Yay! Testimonials.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. That's awesome.
Katie, thank you so much for being on the show today. Everybody, please make sure you go follow Katie on LinkedIn. Go check out her website, thekcapproach.com, and connect with her. Ask her about Antarctica.
Love to talk about it.
So
give me a time frame.
We have an opening here, like helping you out to connect to Katie. Like, I saw you on the Hire Me podcast. What about Antarctica? See, that's how the stuff works, everybody. All right.
Yeah. Katie, thanks for having me too. It was really nice to
be
here.
Katie.
Absolutely. All right. So, Chris, it's come to the end of the show.
It is the end of the show. It is the end of the week.
That was such a good conversation. I was like, I didn't want it to end.
I mean, the thing that I love every week that we, as we have these conversations is that no matter who we bring on, even if there is overlap with our guests, they not only bring a very unique lens and unique advice. I mean, we haven't talked about the mid-career pivot before, but it's just great to hear all of these different perspectives. But the other thing that I really love is that there's definitely some themes that we're finding, right? Personalizing your connections with other people, making sure that you are reaching out and growing and having growing your network and having those conversations, and then just being very strategic versus the shotgunning, like your application all over the place, is definitely something to keep in mind as well.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, do you want to close us out and put up all of our fancy smancy QR codes and such?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just hold on real quick.
Okay.
We've got some comments coming in. I found people with my goal title and job description and just asked them what they did to get into their role. Yeah, absolutely. I've had people reach out to me about that as well. People are very, very willing to connect and talk about how important their job is and how passionate they are. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us here on the Hire Me podcast. Again, this is the live show that we do every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And if you would like to sign up to get a free video resume, you can do so right here. Heather's got her QR code. She's on the East Coast. I've got mine here on the West Coast. Again, scan it, sign up. If you also know anyone that is looking to level up and be elevated in a unique way, this is definitely a way to do it. Again, if you haven't already subscribed to us, LinkedIn and YouTube, make sure you connect with us there. We are constantly growing our platform. And the more we grow our platform, the more we can get those who come onto the platform with their video resumes, with sharing their stories and who they are, just the more platform they have as well. All right, Heather, thank you. It was always good to see you.
Good to see you too. Everybody have a great rest of your Friday, and we'll see you back here next week.
See ya.